Is that right? Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live on multiple channels, and it's so good to have you all here with us. I'm just seeing LinkedIn participation showing up, and also on my Facebook page, Architecting Collaboration, and also on YouTube, Architecting Collaboration channel. It's really great to have you here with us, and also for this fantastic panel we have here today. Three beautiful ladies here with me. Who wants better than this for the end of the day? And on top of that, Pierre Melilio, which will be sharing momentarily camera with Beth Coleman. And it's great to have you all here. My name is Paul Nunes-Diaz. So I started the architecting collaboration concept a few years ago, and I write about it. On several occasions, and it is a pleasure to have here with me today guest experts. I will be talking on excellence programs for research and development centers and universities. So this is a subject that it's not usual, and I'm surprised that we have 47 participants registered on a LinkedIn to know more about what we'll be talking about today. Cool. So by order of appearance, we're going to have Dr. Sandrine Soubs. She's a dear colleague, IF member. Sandrine, would you mind to introduce yourself in a little bit, and then you start sharing your presentations, and then I'll do other introductions, because if I introduce everybody now, in the end, nobody knows who is who, right? So I'll introduce one in the turn. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Sandrine, because you have Tessel development, right? And then you're going to kickstart a presentation. I will be curious.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. So my name is Sandrine Soubs, and as you can hear from my accent, I'm French. But I've not lived in France for a very long time. I live in the UK, and I am a biologist originally. I went to the US to do a PhD, and I was registered in a French university. I did a PhD on malaria, and after this, I moved to the UK and did a postdoc. And at the end of my postdoc, I started working in what's called researcher development. And I've been working in researcher development for 15 years. And I'm going to share a few ideas that I have about researcher development that I have accumulated over the years. And 3 years ago, so I used to work at the University of Sheffield for a very, very long time. And 3 years ago, I made the decision to start working independently. So I set up a consultancy called Tessel Development. And I'm going to share with you a few things that I work on. So can you see my screen here? Is it okay?
It's visible and fantastic. Please go ahead.
So I've put a picture here actually of the Peak District. So I live in Sheffield in the north of England, and we have a very beautiful area called the Peak District, and we're in a region called South Yorkshire. And I've put some beautiful rocks that we have here. It's called Stanage, and I thought that was a nice way of sharing something nice about the UK.
Fantastic.
So,
fantastic.
So working as in researcher development is something that, when I started my PhD and during postdoc, the concept of researcher development didn't really exist. When you were a PhD student or postdoc or early career academic, you were thrown into the department, thrown into a lab if you were a scientist, and you had to sort of fend for yourself, figure things out for yourself. And when at the end of my postdoc, there was an opportunity to develop some workshops for PhD student and PhD student and postdoc. And it was a really critical period in the UK around 2006, where there was a massive report called the Roberts report that started to look at the way that we train researchers and the way that we support people in the research environment. So the UK has been really leading this work in terms of what are the things that we need to do in the research environment to support researchers, do good science, strive in their careers. And over the last 15 years, a huge amount of work has been done in the UK and in other countries. Lots of policy documents, and I've put some examples here of like the Concordat or the HR Excellence in Research, and also at the European level, there is what's called the European Charter for Researchers. So a lot of policy work has been done, and now there are sort of there are lots of things that we expect for PhD students as part of their training, and also for postdoc, in terms of the expectation that comes from the founders. So lots of really good work at doctoral and postdoc level. However, there still remains lots and lots of challenges, and I say, okay, what's the status quo in research or development? And for me, the big things that remains really massive issues are issues of diversity in terms of the recruitment into PhD, and also diversity in terms of gender and ethnic minorities, also in terms of their progression in research careers. Something that we've not really worked hard enough, I believe, is really the period of transition for when postdoctoral researchers are in that transition to becoming independent researchers themselves. So research fellows, again, depending on the country where you base, the term that will be used will be different. So, when you've raised in the rank as an amazing researcher, does it make you, a good people manager, a good research leader to develop a team? Well, not necessarily. So we live in a world that, I call hyper complex and hyper competitive. So becoming a principal investigator, a PI, is extremely challenging. And in a way, we haven't really shifted, the way that we think about how we support researchers at that stage when they're becoming PIs. And what's really interesting is that, we're starting to accumulate a lot of data. There are lots of surveys, in different countries that are looking at the research environment. And there was one that was published by the Wellcome Trust in about 2020. And it was a really interesting piece of work. And this was a massive survey done with PhD, postdoc, and academics, research leader, asking questions about the research environment, and some of the findings from this are really interesting. So some of the quotes that come from the report are, a poor research culture is leading to unhealthy competition, bullying and harassment, and mental health issues. And there are lots of reports about the mental health issues in the research environment. And this report says there is a disconnect between researcher perception of their management skill and their abilities in practice. And, a few bits of the data that comes from this report. So in a way, we've done good work with PhD students and postdoc in terms of building their skills. But really, what is it that we've done to support PIs? In a way, learn to become, research leader, learn to lead, successful teams. And for me, I think that in a way, when you feel, okay, how is it that I want to contribute in the research environment? And for me, there are, two things that I feel really, really committed to, to support. It's this aspect of how do we support diversity, and particularly how do we support the academic progression of women in research, and then how do we support PIs feel empowered to become the research leaders that they can be, in a way that brings some ease, because it's extremely challenging for them. So the way that I approach this, every institution, every, HR department in institution is, pulling their and say, well, actually, what do we do? What is it that we can do to create initiative to make things happen? Because culture change is extremely challenging. So my philosophy, if you want, sort of the principle that I have in the way that I talk about, supporting research, the research environment, is these principles of space for reflection, enabling vulnerability, creating communities, and what I call the slow cooking. A lot of organizations, they think that with a 2-day workshop on leadership, their research leaders are sorted. Well, they're not. We don't figure things out in 2 days of a workshop. The approach that I have is a coaching approach when I work in groups. And I think that when you're thinking about PIs, or when you're thinking about, the transition of people in research, getting people to really take the time, because in research environment, we're always on the spinning wheel, and create, engineering moment of reflection. And if you're thinking, principal investigators are in competition with each other. So having conversation with some of your colleagues in your department can be really challenging. So how do we create spaces where people can open up about the challenges that they're facing? So for me, it's, I think that initiatives about, challenging the research culture, it's about creating space for reflection, but then getting people to try things out, but then bringing them back together to actually have conversation about what they've tried. And I'm trying to do this through a number of initiatives. One is a women development program that I call Daring to Dare. Another one is a program for new research leaders. So, research fellows or people who are at the threshold of setting up their research group. And also this idea of coaching for new research leaders. It's interesting because the idea of coaching, we often have a sense that coaching, it's, you only have coaching if you're a CEO, or you only have coaching, if you are, the head of a department or a vice chancellor. And I truly believe that coaching brings a massive, something incredibly powerful, so that research leader can explore in a timely fashion some of the challenges that they have. So these two programs, Daring to Dare and Research Leader, they use these principles, spaces for conversation, spaces for reflection. They bring people from different departments together. They take really the time to explore what's going on, to explore their goal, their values, to say, well, what is it that I really want? How can I lead my career as a research leader and take opportunities in a way that has congruence in the way that I want to live my research life. So for the Daring to Dare, it's a 5-month program. So I meet participants once a month for half a day over 5 months. They receive a lot of resources in between. So it's sort of like a drip feeding approach to share and to share sort of what I call coaching prompts. Basically, and I think that in this program, it's you come to it not as a way of teaching, because these are adults, these are highly skilled professionals. What you come as a facilitator, you come to this space as creating a space for reflection, creating a space where people can really open up about what's going on. And it's not about the facilitator telling you how to live your research life. People have got to figure it out. But through the exchanges that they get, they're able to move a long way. So I'm just going to finish off in sort of sharing with you some of the comments that people have said about, the impact that it made in that sort of program. For many of the participants of the Daring to Dare program, for example, some of the participants are able to apply to position in a way that maybe they would not have dared before. They're able to have more of a sense of, what it is that they want next. They really take the time to, through the discussion that they have with each other, to figure things out, to sort of understand the rule of the games in academia. What people really value in that sort of program is that they meet other people who are at the same stage, or who are maybe slightly ahead and who can share their experiences. And a lot of the things that people say is that, for example, take one of these quotes, I realize I'm not alone, and most people may experience the same thing as I do. And it sounds really basic and simple, but it's not. It's incredibly powerful, because there is a lot, from a lot of the survey, there is a lot of loneliness in the research environment. We may have conversation about a research project, but we don't necessarily have conversation about what it feels like to be in that space. And I'm going to finish by sharing, just in a way, to be something a little bit maybe provocative, if I may say. And maybe Paul knows this book from Sam Conniff, the Be More Pirate book, because that's something that we had discussed during the one of the facilitator conference last year. And in this book, there is this quote: "Too many of the rules, norms, and conventions that uphold our systems and business models no longer serve people and planet. We need to create new ones." And in a way, when you're thinking about how do we support, our research leaders, how do we support our researchers, how do we support women in research, in a way, whatever workshop we've had before, whatever training program we've had before, is this serving them change the research environment. And in a way, the approach that I have is to create a space where participants co-create programs with me. I interview, for example, the research leader program, I interviewed all of my participants. And in a way, it's creating a space that can evolve. And in a way, we really need to challenge ourselves in the way that we create a space for all this conversation. And I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And this was a lovely start of our conversation. I think I'm going now to give the floor to Peter, right? Because Peter wanted to speak the second after you, Sandrine. And just for people to be reminded about the flow of our program, let me just, Peter, are you ready to go as I need, oh, you are, yes. But you're still showing us Beth Coleman, but that's not a problem. I will change your name in just a minute here so that people understand who you are. And
bring this up here.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes, is the sound coming through okay?
The sound is fantastic. And Peter, please introduce yourself, if you may, just in a few minutes, so participants and that are following us live on LinkedIn know a little bit more about you, and then please proceed with your presentation. So I sense that peer assess as a secret, right? Tell us all about it.
Right, okay. So my name is Peter Mellieu. In France, I call myself Jean-Pierre Mellieu. My name is obviously French, but I'm a Euro citizen. I was born in England, emigrated to New Zealand from Wales, and my undergraduate studies were in New Zealand in operations research and industrial engineering. My postdoc was in systems, both at MIT in Cambridge, America, and at Lancaster University in the United Kingdom. I worked as an industrial engineer in our national science organization for about 10 years. But then I found that I had a passion for teaching. And I wanted to help people understand the value of using high technology, particularly information technology, to achieve their outcomes. So I've been a teacher for about 35 years, and I wanted to be an innovative teacher. And I have achieved that. A highlight was I was commissioned to be the founding director for a master's in innovation and entrepreneurship. And I had some scientists, chief scientist of one of our national research laboratories there, innovators and entrepreneurs. So that is the spectrum of innovation that I've been involved in teaching. Most recently, I've been teaching design thinking and sustainability. So the focus for me is the early career teacher in higher education. I'm making the assumption that an early career teacher wants to be different from the traditional kind of teaching of talk and chalk. Excuse me. So they want to do something different than traditional talk and chalk. And certainly in my teaching, certainly in the last 25 years, I've used group work and collaborative teaching, collaborative learning. I've faced many of the challenges of that and many of the fantastic benefits from that. And I want to share some of the good practices that I've developed from that. Some of the lessons overlap with some of those that Sandrine has been involved in. So here's a question. How does an early career teacher in higher education deliver graduates with high employability? I'm just going to focus on the sub-theme of employability as one way for a teacher to differentiate themselves. So what is employability? Well, there's a survey each year conducted by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. This is an American agency that conducts this survey, and you'll see that 81% of the respondents to that survey seek graduates who have the ability to work in a team. And you'll see that for other attributes, communications, initiative, leadership, flexibility, and adaptability, 2/3 of employers are looking for graduates with these attributes. These are soft skills. Yeah. These are difficult to teach. And here's another issue that employers, shown here in blue, rate the graduates they receive very differently from the students. The students, for example, rate themselves excellent at leadership, but the employers not so. And the same goes for professionalism, communication. So how do we overcome these challenges? The traditional teacher is teaching students how to know, how to learn new theories and apply those theories. But those theories are easy to forget and easily outdated. I remember my very first lecture, my very first point of contact when I was a teacher. The teacher said, if you are still using your degree to get yourself a job 3 years after you've graduated, you have failed. But there are these other skills which are becoming more important for the modern graduate to become future ready, to become resilient to the changes of life. The problem is that these talents, these attributes are hard to teach, but once a student has learned them, they're also hard to forget and they last a lifetime. And you will see amongst these attributes, we have the principled leader, the interdependent team worker, the communicator. So what we need is innovative pedagogies to develop these soft skills, and particularly those related to the urgent need to get graduates good jobs, to help them to get up to speed and running quickly. Employability. Here are some of the experiential methods that I've used in my teaching and that my colleagues have: the flipped classroom, team-based learning, project-based learning, and so forth. A common denominator amongst all of these methods is the use of collaborative learning or group work, group assignments. Now, there are problems with this. There are challenges that arise from collaborative learning. For teachers, how to allocate fair marks, how to allocate fair marks proportional to the contribution each team member has made to the group's work. Students want to know that if they work harder, they'll get a better grade. Team dynamics. For teachers, they want to spot struggling teams, struggling individuals. They want to intervene proactively so those teams can overcome those problems and achieve success. It's got to be done early so that effective changes can be made so that the project doesn't turn to a mess. Students want to learn how to learn from and with each other. So I've developed a set of principles and policies and practice for fair, valid, and effective assessment that teachers can apply with their teams when they're undertaking collaborative assessment, or collaborative learning, I should say. These include, first of all, the benefits. Students need to understand the benefits from undertaking collaborative learning. Mostly, they've had bad experiences with group projects and they hate them. So let's remind them of what the benefits are, and we've hinted at those. employers are looking for the learnings that come from collaborative learning. There's some research that underpins the benefits of collaborative learning and how it works in good practice. I'll talk about a 7-step formula later on for managing the process right through, sort of teaching by numbers approach. Standard rubrics are useful for measuring the attributes that we mentioned before. And there are some policies, some academic policies that we should introduce to ensure fair assessment practice. One key component of collaborative assessment is teammate peer assessment. This is how we achieve the outcome of fair grades based in proportion to contribution. We measure through the peer assessment platform, we measure 5 attributes that contribute towards task accomplishment and another 5 attributes that measure leadership and team processes. And we measure these quantitatively, but we also get qualitative feedback to get guidance from the team members how the rest of the team members can improve their performance going forward with the team. Here, feedback is part of the peer assessment process, and it's crucial to have early, regular, I call them courageous conversations. Sandrine has mentioned assertiveness training. It's a similar thing, the process of encouraging students to confront the issues that face them and give fair feedback. So finally, I mentioned a 7-step formula, and here I just quickly flick over this 7-step formula. Step 0 is orientation. And a key point is that students need to be trained to give honest feedback accurately. And there are several self-learning resources that help them do that. And within a good peer assessment platform, the students get identified if they're being unfair in their ratings. Step 5, you'll see, is managing the survey, where the teacher is using the platform to identify struggling teams and individuals and generating automated advice on how they can remedy those situations and recover and become productive in their team outputs. And finally, the converse courageously is the step where the students have received feedback from their team members through anonymous reports, but now you provide a safe space for the students to conduct those assertive conversations and learn how to work constructively in the future. So here are some references which pick up on some of the matters that I've introduced today. So
amazing. Thank you so much, Peter, for keeping up to the time exactly as requested. And this is awesome, as we have plenty to talk about still today. And so now I'm handing over to Beth Coleman. And Beth, as soon as you're ready to take over from Peter, we'll start. And then we have a final presentation from Carlotta Tovar, which also from us, a view from the field. Let me do briefly here a recap on our agenda, as we have perhaps our viewers a little bit confused in what we have here today. And I will leave this some time for Beth and Peter to change cameras. They are sharing the same location in beautiful center. So this is what we're all about. This is our agenda. So we are having a starter part with expert consultants, and this is taking us the initial 30 minutes here. And then we're going to have the second part, which is views from the field. We will be a round table with university and research and development practitioners. And in this case, Carlotta Tovar, I'm happy that she could take time for a busy schedule to be here and make a presentation. And then we'll have a general discussion, Q&A. And since we have not as many speakers as initially planned, we could leave earlier today. So that's good news for everybody that is patiently watching us. So right now, Sandrine already talked, Peter already talked, and now it's Beth Coleman is going to finalize this first part of the opening addresses. And then we're going to have a second presentation from Carlotta Tovar, and I'll be introducing her in a minute. And then we'll have the Q&A and the conversation all together here, hopefully, with more insights. Beth, over to you now.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just going to share my screen here.
Sure.
Thank you. I have a few slides I'm going to present. My focus really today is on a little bit about sharing of knowledge in the research experience and the value of doing so. My background is in IT primarily and education. I spent much of my early career in IT training internally on large organizations and also assisting organizations with new projects. And I love innovation. I have a master's in business innovation and entrepreneurship, and I like to continuously innovate and learn. I'm just going to bring some concepts to you who are involved in research on how value can be brought into your research programs by sharing knowledge. I'm involved in a use of a methodology which is called knowledge-centered service, abbreviated as KCS. And I offer courses and training, and I run programs to enable people in IT at universities to uptake knowledge practices that will assist their customers who are the internal staff and academics at the universities. I also have been involved in research myself, and I'm a chairman for a small company doing service, I guess you could call it service research in New Zealand called EcoQuest. One of my passions is sustainability. And so I do love working with people who are researching in the field to save our planet. So I'm quite focused on that work. This wonderful thing about sharing knowledge is it can be applied anywhere. So my background in IT allows me to move into knowledge in universities. And I've worked with researchers at universities who have had to have IT assist them in standing up their research projects. I've also assisted teams of people to deliver those systems and the knowledge required to enable the systems to work adequately for those researchers. So I guess I have firsthand on two things. One is what can go wrong, and how do we enable research to work more effectively? So let's see what's going on with this. I guess the IT is not working as well as I'd like it to. So our knowledge is really something that needs to be added and shared as we begin work. And one of the things that we find when we're capturing knowledge is that it's helpful to have a system. Everyone who's working with knowledge can share it in one way or another. Most people have an ability to do that with new tech that's available now in the systems that we all already have. However, the structuring of that knowledge and the way in which we present it is key. And if we don't do that correctly, we can find that people will have difficulty finding the knowledge. That is the big difficulty. So the value of shared knowledge can only be gained by structuring it well and employing thinking around what we're doing when we create it. When we're thinking about the customer or the person who's receiving it, we will write it differently. And many universities have their own writing scheme. When we're writing for our teams, our teams will need to use it in a certain way, and we need to think about those members. We need to think about our customers, who are the students, when we're writing for them. All of that can be gained easily as long as we have structure. But in research, where do we actually need to add and use knowledge? And how do we gain benefit from it? So if you're going to be researching and working with a collaborative team, what are the things we need to do while we're creating that knowledge? First, we need to think about, where do we store the research questions that come up while we're discussing and collaborating the knowledge, the research? What type of roles and responsibilities do we have in our collaboration? As new collaborators come in or new team members come in, we need to store that in an area that can easily be found and consumed, saving later participants time and enabling them to get up to speed very quickly. Information updates are another aspect. When we need to tell sponsors about our research, how easy is it for them to find that information? Now, the KCS methodology comes with some very strong principles around sharing. The key to this is making sure everyone understands that we're all doing the work. Do we trust that the information is updated as we need it? Are we creating value, and who is receiving it? How do we know that when we create that knowledge that's going to be shared with our sponsors, our team members, and students, that is easily consumed and using that is easy? So finally, what kind of information are we storing? Is there a question in someone's mind that we need to be able to answer? And sometimes it does mean predicting people will need to know certain things and writing the knowledge in advance. We call that priming the knowledge base. When designing knowledge, we have 4 key practices that we do every day. We capture what we know is going to be valuable for others. We structure it correctly so that they can easily consume it and find it, and make it usable. So reuse is key. Enabling people to add that knowledge so that it can be used by others needs a central knowledge base. And then finally, giving everyone the ability to improve it. Everyone who sees it should have some way of improving that knowledge in a knowledge base. When we look at communities, which is really where we're going to be developing these systems, we want to understand what kind of information is most valuable. And so we do have to look at the kind of information shared and how easily it's consumed and used. And so the tools we need today are far more comprehensive and can be used to enable us to see and predict how we prime those knowledge bases. Then, if people can't find them, we also need to have knowledge that's available for us to support those people who have questions about our research and are engaging with us in that. And that's another knowledge base. So all of this comes down to understanding, where are we adding value? And the realization of the benefits come from these basic structures that we can put easily in place, capturing, structuring the knowledge, reusing it, and making sure everyone can improve it. And under that, we bring in the concept of coaching. And as Sandrine and Peter have both mentioned, coaching is a key element to bringing the capabilities into the team, enabling them to understand and develop knowledge expertise, which is a very valuable aspect of employability. So with that, I will just close to say that if there's any further questions about knowledge and how knowledge can be used in a environment at the university setting outside of IT or in IT, please feel free to get in touch. And also, please request any further information through this seminar and following. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Beth, and also for keeping the time. It's amazing how we are trying to get here and I kindly ask you if you can stop presenting so we can see each other faces. And I'm going to present, in my case, the next speaker, because we are changing the slot right now. So we are going to into the slot where the the guest speaker is someone from the field, Carlota Tovar Perez. She's the director of the foundation of the University Camilo José Cela. So it's a prestigious private university based in Madrid for anyone not living in Spain. And Carlota, over to you now, because I think you have something to share with us about the institution and the university, right?
Exactly. Thank you very much, Paul, for the introduction. And well, thank you all the presenters, because well, I have seen a lot of things in common. I'm very happy to see that we share so many things in this field. And I'm going to start, sharing this presentation. Okay. Can you see it?
We see it, yes.
Yes, but sorry, because I have forgotten to share with the audio. I have a short video. Here we are.
Okay. Yeah. You need to share with audio, so we can listen. Yeah.
Yes. So, well, thank you, Paul, for the presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today, because I believe that we are addressing an issue that needs more attention in university, and it's fantastic to be here to share our points of view. Well, as you presented, I'm Carlota Tovar. I'm the director of the University Camilo José Cela Foundation. And University Camilo José Cela is a young university founded in 2000 in Madrid, and it is part of the SEC Education Group, comprised of 10 international schools and 2 foundations. I currently direct the University Camilo José Cela Foundation, and I am in charge of promoting its social impact. When I was listening to the other presenters, I was trying to summarize my career, and well, I divided into 3 stages that maybe are important to highlight today because of the theme of this event. My first stage was at the Polytechnic University. I was for more than 10 years a research and a consultant. I'm an industrial engineer with a PhD in virtual simulations. And here I had the possibility to lead a research team for these 10 years. After this stage, I entered in a second stage after studying a master's degree in human technology for social impact. That's when I turned to sustainability, and I put the focus in using technology to foster the social impact of organization. And in my last stage, I entered studying a master in coaching, and it's when I became Vice Rector for Innovation and Research at the UCJC, University Camilo José Cela. And later I started as director of the foundation. So, well, the fact that universities underestimate the importance and therefore the resource of cultivating leadership among professors and researchers is perpetuating knowledge silos. This situation undermines universities' capacity for innovation and in turn, their impact on society. It affects the university's functioning at different levels. Lack of communication and collaboration between faculties, departments, inside research teams. It usually ends up with principal investigators and research group leaders with a great experience in a specific area of research, in a specific domain, and a significant lack of experience in organizational policy and leadership, among others.
Okay, Carlota, just a reminder that you're still on the first slide. Is this intentional?
Yes, don't worry, because I'm going to start right now. Okay. This is just an introduction, okay? So thank you very much, Paul. And as a big core institution, we consider ourselves part of a larger movement whose focus is the promotion of sustainability. Sustainability with a capital S, concerned with the environmental, economic, and social spheres, placing inclusion and social justice at the center of our programs. And as an educational community, we continually seek innovation in our teaching, learning, and research models. And in particular, we see the preparation of our principal investigators and research group leaders as part of a lifelong learning process. And today, I'm going to share 4 lines of action that we consider crucial foster this process. The first one is creating a manifesto on how the university of the third millennium should respond to the current society's needs. The second one is facilitating spaces for reflection, discussion, and co-creation between educational community members. That's when Sandrine was talking about this need of spaces. I was thinking about what we are already doing at the university. The third one is fostering lifelong learning training for our staff. Later, I agree with Sandrine too, that this is not a specific training for 2 days or a weekend. We need a lifelong learning philosophy. And last but not least, creating professional incentives to support all this. So in 2021, Tech Education Group launched a think tank on future and learning, where around 100 experts and students from around the world came together to reflect on how the university of the third millennium should respond to the current society's needs. And well, this analysis is an ongoing exercise open to contributions from society. And the conclusions of this think tank are summarized in our global manifesto that you can see in the slide, compounded by 12 key points open for discussion to answer the following question. What would a university be like if we had to create one in the next few years? And here you have these 12 points. I'm going to mention them very quickly. The first one is a student-centered approach. Universities must ensure students are at the core of their design process. 2, collaborative and open ecosystems. The 3 point is data-informed organization. The university management model must focus on data to understand each student's choices and context. Personal itineraries, lifelong learning philosophy. Institutions must adapt their model to each student's life cycle. Nomad campus and the metaverse. The educational campus goes beyond the limits of its physical infrastructure and must be designed from an open, interactive, and hybrid perspective. In 7th position, we have the future of work. Learning models must be adapted to the needs of the labor market, but also students' abilities and interests and demands of our society. 8, we need new roles in teaching, learning, and researching. New training models and social needs have given rise to new professional profiles, and advances in learning and science underscore the importance of teaching excellence in providing a transformative learning experience. And of course, the need to develop interdisciplinary research to meet the most critical challenge of our time. And here, if we want to promote this interdisciplinary research, it's mandatory to put the focus in the kind of leadership of our researchers. In 9th position, we have the sandbox approach. We need to create spaces that serve as a testing and experimentation sandbox areas to facilitate the agile implementation of pilot projects and the measurement and analysis of their impact and results. In 10th position, we have wellness and balance. All educational community members' physical and emotional well-being has become a priority. In 11th position, we have the social commitment, and finally, free and critical thinking. This manifesto is operationalized at UCJC through an educational model based on 4 strategic axes. One is an entrepreneurial philosophy of life, 2nd, well-being, 3rd, digitalization, and in 4th position, social commitment. And the thing is that our programs are articulated on these 4 axes, and around them, we generate our DNA and our sense of community. And through this axis, we break down the knowledge silos, and we look for what unites us and leave aside what makes us different, because most of the time, what differentiates us is only our expertise in a particular discipline. So to put this model into practice, we create spaces to reflect, to discuss, and to co-create and learn. And here I want to share these 3 spaces because they are particularly important for our principal researchers. These are the Global Education Forum, and they're in 1st position. We have created it to debate how to transform higher education with the international community. And let me share this short video to explain it more in depth.
In recent years, we have witnessed the beginning of a profound debate on the role of the university and its need to change, evolve, and adapt to the new social and professional reality we are living. The appearance of COVID in March 2020 was the definitive push for this reflection to be even broader, deeper, more sincere, and necessary. A few weeks after the beginning of the pandemic in April 2020, the Camilo José Cela University launched the think tank Future and Learning. Its objective was to analyze the impact of the pandemic on higher education, to reflect on the challenges and opportunities of higher education in the face of the current paradigm shift, and to build a community of innovators to openly discuss the future of higher education. For 16 months, more than 100 university rectors and vice-rectors, entrepreneurs, students, professors, and other professionals from the formal and non-formal education sector have held one of the deepest and most current conversations on the future of higher education. The conclusions to all these conversations are summarized in what we call the Global Manifesto, 12 points of discussion for the University of the Third Millennium. In June 2021, UCJC went a step further and decided to broaden the debate, launching a new edition of the Global Education Forum, a platform created in 2010 by the SEC Education Group that held a similar discussion on school education and its first two editions. In this third edition, the Global Education Forum aimed to continue the discussions initiated in the think tank. During the 3-day event, more than 120 experts and students from all over the world discussed the challenges that the university system and higher education are facing. But that didn't start on the event. On the weeks prior, we started this debate with different micro-events around 4 tracks: entrepreneurship, well-being, social impact, and digitalization. We also started an international campaign asking the educational community to share their views on the future of higher education. More than 120 people sent in their videos with insights. In addition, more than 1,000 students from all around the world spent several weeks working and contributing ideas on what the university they want to study at should be like. We want to continue this debate with a community of more than 6,000 people that participated and building on all the insights generated around the forum. This is the Global Education Forum, an open innovation platform and the movement that is co-creating the future of higher education.
Well, and the Hive is the space to promote experiential learning communities, and through this program, interdisciplinary experiences led by our professors and students emerge as pilot projects. And the aim of these projects is to expand the learning experience of the teacher and their student with initiatives that seek to impact society positively. And the thing is that these experiences lay the seeds for future research projects and facilitate the development of participative leadership skills in our teachers and researchers. So this is the starting point to develop that kind of leadership that we are looking later in our principal researchers. And subsequently, the Vice-Rectory for Research continues this work by offering international weeks to foster a sense of a global research community.
In recent years, we have witnessed the beginning of a
Here. And and in addition to creating these spaces, we promote lifelong learning philosophy in our staff. On the one hand, we want our professor and researcher to reach any leadership position with prior knowledge about teaching, research, and knowledge transfer, not technical knowledge. In the case of our researchers, the Vice-Rectory for Research offers either a specific training at a technical level with courses for predoctoral researchers starting their thesis, or at a management level for those senior researchers who will go on to lead teams. And on the other hand, we want our professors and researchers to reach any leadership position with prior knowledge of the institution in which they work. So we want them to develop a systemic vision of our educational environment. And to this aim, the Vice-Rectorate for Planification offer them systemic thinking training. And that's the only way to promote participative and authentic leadership. No? And finally, to make all this possible, the university has created a new professional recognition system, the UCAC Centennial. And in the same way that in Spain, the educational system recognizes the merits of the research through the research centennial that takes into account high impact articles, conferences, and patents, etc. UCAC has designed this centennial to recognize how UCAC researchers and professors contributes to our DNA, facilitating collaborative ecosystems where they put into practice the leadership from the first day they start. So this having some headlines about how we prepare our researchers and in general our professors for leadership positions. Thank you very much, and well, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Really, really great presentation, Carlota. And well, I have to say that I've been involved in the past as a facilitator for the Universidad Camilo José Cela. I've worked there as a facilitator in different sorts of workshops. It's an exciting learning environment. And all these images are quite true. So this responds to the reality. But really, the question is for our guest speakers, experts that are starting this panel, are these kind of innovative universities something that you are used to encounter in your own countries, Sandrine, Beth, and of course, Peter?
Well, I mean, I think that in the UK, a lot of this work has been done. And in a way, it's really interesting, Carlota, because on one of the slides, I was talking about, being more pirate in the research environment and in the research culture. And that's exactly what you're doing in your institution. Kind of, maybe that's not the term that you will have used, being more pirate, but that's what you're doing. It's like, okay, if we were going to start a university from scratch, which purpose will it play? How will we want to interact with each other? How will we want to reward the academics and the way they're engaging? And it's interesting because so I used to work at the University of Sheffield, and it's something that has been changed quite recently. This element of citizenship and contribution, broad contribution. And people are still, a lot of the academics are still wondering whether it will be, just the policy or the reality in the promotion panel, if it will be very serious. And we still have to figure this out. But the fact that we're having these conversations now means that a lot has happened. And I think that from between countries, there is a lot of differences. But well, at least in the UK, I think that a lot of work has been done on research culture. And I think it was stirred actually by this Wellcome Trust survey. For example, the UKRI, which is one of the big funder in the UK, they actually have a network now that provide coaching for all of the research fellows that are funded through the UKRI. So there's been, there's been a lot of changes in a few years. So it's, I'm hopeful.
Yes, I think the point that I'd like to bring in is that the research you're doing into digitization, the outcome of your research with the expert input from the experts who you surveyed and students, and coming up with the digitization aspect is actually something that many organizations need to do, and not many are doing in that way. So my hat goes off to you for doing the work to get the feedback and the input from those people who are going to be using technology to assist them in the future. It's very, very critical. So yes, it's not happening as quickly as it should to get the feedback to design, and then spend time to reflect and design what is needed for the future.
I'd say in New Zealand and Australia, as strongly informed by both American practice and UK practice, there were radical disruptions to both research in the universities, research outside the universities, and the tertiary education, higher education, beginning in the mid-1980s. So it's been a big quantum jump and then evolving changes since that time. The special thing in the context of Australia and New Zealand is that we appear to be small and remote when looked at from this side of the world. We also have a very large proportion of our trade is exported. So we have to critically tune in and connect with particularly the Asian world and the European world, and those drive innovations in education and research. And I've mentioned just some of the ones that I've been associated with. One key question I faced as a young researcher was but for my boss, was how do I get this research beyond the published journals? How do I get it into practice? And that's been a leitmotif for me right through my career. How do I get new stuff happening? And that led me to the discoveries of the field of innovation, entrepreneurship. Sandrine uses the word be a pirate. I use the word be an entrepreneur. Don't ask for permission, just do it. then ask for
forgiveness. Yeah, that's
then ask for forgiveness. Exactly.
Yeah,
yes,
not permission.
Exactly. Yes. Gifford Pinchot. That's been one of my top 10 commandments from Gifford Pinchot. For a long time. Gets me in a lot of trouble, but I usually manage to dig myself out.
But that brings me to a question, Carlotta. It's easy to innovate in university, because in the sense we have to realize universities are one of the most conservative institutions, because they are designed to replicate knowledge, right? And not just to create knowledge, right?
Yes. Exactly. Here I have to say that being in a private and a small university is an advantage. I was working at the public university, of course, it's completely different. And yes, it's never easy. It's not easy. But the thing is that one of the important things that Sandrine mentioned is to adopt philosophy of slow cooking. I love the term, because in general, we need to slow down in everything. And that's when we have the space to innovate. For example, when I started this program, the Hive to foster experiential learning, one of the things that I included was to design the program with the professors. And I created the spaces to open the conversation to faculties, and each bachelor degree has an ambassador in this program, and we create these spaces during the year to debate about what kind of experiences can make us as a professionals improve our professional development, and our students, how we could change then the way in which they understand the bachelor degree, and in general the university, because it's more than the content of the curriculum. It's the experience itself of being with us for years. And the fact is, when I started this conversation, it was incredible, because some ambassadors, some bachelor's degree had never spoken to others. So it was the first time that some professors meet others. And when you see how many things you have in common with disciplines that you never thought, it appears a different energy. And you say, wow, this is really interesting. I can, learn a lot inside the university. And sometimes we believe that we only learn researching inside a department, particularly in a room with a lot of books, articles, etc. But not talking to others and sharing different perspectives of the same challenge with different disciplines is amazing. The kind of conversations that you can open, and we didn't realize it before this program. So that was important, and to give us this space, to slow down and to reflect and to understand that sometimes when we have these spaces, we are just talking. We don't want a product immediately after these conversations. We are just trying to discover what are our strengths, weak points, how we can reinforce the weak points of the other, and how we can create something together. So these experiences that we are launching in this program is really changing the culture of the university in some way, and creating a new atmosphere that empower us, give us this philosophy. Yes, we can change things inside the university. So yes, it's really energizing, I would say.
It reminds me of a program that I run a couple of times called the Crucible program. So the idea of, so I'm based in Sheffield, and Sheffield is the city of steel, and a crucible is the sort of pot where you melt metal. And so the concept of the crucible is to bring people from different disciplines and then see what happens. So I run a program like that, bringing about 30 researchers from any discipline and getting them to, and this idea of slow cooking, getting them to basically spend several, 2 days away from campus over several months. In that particular program, it was 3 rounds of 2 days to basically just be together, spend time together, and decide. And one of the things, Carlota, that you said that to me is really important is that to not necessarily have a product, and this idea of space and playing around. And what was interesting in this program is that the idea was to get people to explore interdisciplinary collaboration, but not in a way that, there was pressure. It was like, let's see what happens. And there was a pot of funding at the end, sort of small pots of funding for, preliminary pilot project, but it wasn't like a huge amount of money. There were small pots of money. But so there was an incentive in some ways, but at the same time, this idea of, let's just be together. And for me, a lot of the work that I do, and it seems that, Carlota, that's what you're doing with your research. And in a way, it's almost like going back to basics, going back to putting people in the same room, putting people, getting people to have a coffee together. For me, when I moved to, doing my PhD in the States, one of the things that shocked me the most coming from France, but people will eat their sandwich in the office. They didn't go and have lunch together. And in a way, there is a level of conviviality that I feel needs to be part of the research environment. And I think that when we're thinking about research culture, about research collaboration, about openness in research, I think it's this space of conversation that we're trying to set up. We're going back to basic, and we're bringing back something of a certain level of humanity that I feel is being lost through the churning of research grants and papers and so on. Mm-hmm. So it's, in a way, is this innovative? I don't know. To me, it's going back to basic, to sort of core principle of interaction. But in a way, it is innovative in the sense that it doesn't happen everywhere.
Exactly. I think it's innovation. And Beth and Peter, please jump in if you like, because time is running out, and I would like just to have a focus on the ChatGPT, which is, everybody knows about this new resource that's out there. I didn't have the chance to try it yet, but I've seen in LinkedIn colleagues posting dissertations of themes like entrepreneurship, Peter, that ChatGPT tells a lot about any subject you ask. So the question is really, if we are going to use dissertations as a method for evaluating the students, with ChatGPT, we are doomed. And this, on the other hand, brings the opportunity for what you just presented, Peter. It's just a peer assessment and a structured way to do it right? So are you aware that you could be the worst enemy or the salvation of the world of this revolution that's happening with your system, peer assessed? Is it something easy to implement, Peter?
Yes. In the slideshow, I will add some links to a quick 30-second video and a longer video which outlines some of the principles. It's simple to implement. You organize your teams through the learning management system, and then run through the plugin for Peer Assess Pro. The survey gets sent out to the students. They complete it. the teacher sees who's not completed it. The platform itself automatically reminds the students. For students who have been struggling, it identifies those, and a pre-formed message is prepared for the teacher, who can send it out as they like. The teacher enters the grades for the assignments, for the outputs of the team, a project report, presentation, things like this, and then the grade is calculated for each of the team members. So the videos
it brings a lot of reliability, because
yes.
So the students can no longer cheat.
Correct.
They have to work together as a team.
They have to work together, and if
because
they're not,
they will be evaluated by themselves.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the secret, right?
Yeah, that's the secret. They students are very good at knowing who is contributing and who is not, and what kind of thing is being contributed and not. Our platform has many checks to ensure that there is consistent rating of the valuations made.
But is it too complicated to implement a tool like yours? I mean, because everybody knows about the IT challenges for teachers, right, Carlotta? So everyone say, "Oh my God, another software tool."
Exactly. Exactly.
But it integrates with Blackboard.
Streamlining the process.
It integrates with the campus platforms, right? With Moodle
It integrates with using a platform called LTI 1.3, which is a generic platform for integrating with learning management systems.
That's right.
We've done that for Canvas. We've done it for Moodle. Yeah. So that's that. So we test specifically for the validity of students' ratings, and we can give a statistical.
Yeah, I mean that's the salvation boy for the ChatGPT challenge, because now everybody will think about dissertation as something that it's not reliable anymore. What is it that guarantees me that this dissertation is original? Or is it made by AI, powerful AI algorithm that it's free for everybody to use? So it's really an amazing challenge. Okay, and time is running out. And Beth, I hear you're quite quiet, and I was curious about this process that you have, this servicing model. How could you see this to be applied to innovative programs in universities, besides the conversations between IT teams and students? Is there any other ways you see that the service model can be applied in universities?
Yes, absolutely. So within most organizations now, there are several groups who are looking to supply information out to new members of their groups, or to customers, or to stakeholders. And that process I gave you is very easy to transfer to departments within organizations outside of IT. As I mentioned, I work in IT. So many organizations are now taking this up, and some of the universities I've worked with have been able to create wonderful access platforms and portals to their content, and make it easy for their members and others outside the university to access them. Of course, there's always Google, right? So when people are looking at search and they're trying to find something in a small university or even a large university, very often they'll go to Google, but Google can also find everything that you have online. And so structuring knowledge is important, and understanding what apps and other information that needs to be shared is available. And that's part of the work that needs to be done in order to design good service. And it can be done very easily now because the tech is there. So AI comes into play. And when you start working with AI, you suddenly realize that it's not going to answer all the questions we have, because we haven't written the answers. So a big part of this is knowledge sharing and writing those answers. And that's what I have to say for knowledge. We have to write it. We can't rely on an AI to write it for us.
Yes.
Although that one little app you're talking about does a great job, it's still repeating what it's found somewhere else.
Okay.
So that element of creativity and innovation really comes from human beings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's a powerful note to end up this conversation. I would like to ask you to each one of you to finalize with a concluding comment from what you have learned today, or after you have shared here, and not to have you know, the golden nugget that you can extract from this conversation. Okay, so let's start by the order of appearance of the speakers, and Sandrine, over to you.
Well, I was very excited about what Carlota presented, this idea of, you know, a manifesto for University of the Third Millennium. I think that taking, you know, taking a big picture view of actually changing the system, it's very exciting, and I think it's a really good position to be in an institution, you know, in a way that enables you to do that. So good luck on that. And I think that it's also really exciting that you've done training yourself as a, you know, in terms of coaching, and again that people are, you know, the perception that people have of coaching is really changing, and the way it's becoming embedded in universities and higher education is very exciting for me. Thank you.
Fantastic. We have here good comments also in LinkedIn. People are applauding, and thank you so much, Paula Vital and Marie Isabel, for watching us. Okay, so over to you, Peter.
Well, the themes that I'm picking up, I've always been a kind of shiny new object kind of guy, always looking for the new thing and looking over the next mountain. But what I've heard from today is the importance of back to the basics, and that innovation can include plucking from old mature trees. I've enjoyed the slow cooking literally in my tours through Europe, for example. And I do remember, here's a story. I do remember, as a young researcher in my early 20s, that morning teas scheduled for 15 minutes that everybody went to. Maybe there's two shifts, but we all went to. We met with the other researchers, the elderly wise men who worked on radar during World War II, and this and this, and their war stories of what they did and how they did and how they got around problems, how they solved issues when there was no equipment and no money, but they still discovered knowledge. So back to basics, slow cooking. Fabulous.
Fantastic.
Basis of new innovation.
Good sharing. Okay, so over to you, Beth, and then finally, Carlota. You'll be taking the last word, Carlota. Beth, over to you.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the reflection aspect of all of this. It seems there's a thread that goes through all of it, which is about the opportunity to give people time and to enable them to give feedback. And most of the time, we don't have that time. So for leaders to take the stance and learn as well as reflect and then share that out is so valuable. So I really enjoyed your presentation, Carlota, and also Sandrine, because you're both focused around coaching, understanding people, and bringing that in. And that's really so important in all aspects of the work that I do and Peter does. So it was great to hear that thread coming through. Really exciting.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, and finally, Carlota, your last golden nugget.
Thank you. And it's difficult to add something else because I share with all of them the same things. Maybe to highlight, yes, this slow cooking philosophy. I believe that we really want to change the kind of leadership that we have in our universities. We need to leave a space to create this, and this implies, yes, new conversations, new space to create new relationships, and yes, and to work in a different way, because really we have to solve these weak and complex sustainability challenges that implies so many disciplines together. How we are going to do it if we don't talk to our research in the next door? So I believe that it's mandatory to slow down and to give us the possibility of combining the science with the humanity part of the university. We have to work together, human beings and science, to innovate and to make these sustainability challenges to improve, and finally to arrive to a 2030 agenda successfully.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, dear guest speakers. It was really a pleasure for me to host this conversation. Also, thank you so much for our participants watching us live right now. This event is going to be broadcasted again on a suitable timetable for our Asia viewers, because obviously right now we have most of the US with us and sunset Europe time and Africa, of course. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions and you'd like to be following our guest speakers, just follow the thread below and you can ask comments and we'll reply to you and we'll follow through this conversation. So again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you so much. It was really great.
Thanks a lot. Nice meeting you all. Cheers. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.